disappointing campaign, made all the more so considering they reached the AFC Championship game only the year before. Conversely, their host opponent that night, the New Orleans Saints, a perennial NFC weak sister that as yet had never experienced a winning season, well, the Saints were 6-5 entering the game. They were enjoying one of their most successful years, perhaps one that would culminate in their first ever playoff appearance. Hopes were high in the Creole City, for a Saints victory would tie them with the Rams and 49ers for first place in the NFC Western Division. But they would have to get by a Jets team whose subpar standing belied their actual talent and threatening posture.
The New York Jets' 1983 season could fittingly be remembered as a season of imprisonment, as injuries to key personnel confined the team to the cellar of the AFC's Eastern Division. On this November Monday, they were caged in the Cajun country as the Jets prepared to do battle with the up-and-coming New Orleans Saints. For Jet quarterback Richard Todd, the former #1 pick was winding down what would be his final year in a Jets uniform, an 8-year tenure that never quite reached its fullest measure of success due to his ill-fated penchant for the misguided pass, such as this one on Todd's first attempt of the game. Number 20, Russell Gary's interception and fumble was eventually recovered by a teammate and set up New Orleans deep in Jet territory. 3 plays later, the Saints' leading rusher, George Rogers, number 38, spun his way in for the early score. Another look at Rogers' 14-yard run reveals a key block by up-back Hokie Gaijan, number 46, that cleared the scoring path. However, on the Saints' next possession, quarterback Ken Stabler learned in a costly fashion that turnabout is fair play. Number 56, linebacker Lance Mell's 34-yard interception return of Stabler's first pass tied the game at 7. Over the course of the game, Lance Mell would stand out like an orchid in a desert. He would register 17 tackles, a quarterback sack, and a fumble recovery. But Stabler and the Saint offense remained undaunted, as their ensuing possession would see them travel 80 yards in 9 plays, a drive that mixed the hard running of George Rogers with the soft hands of receivers like Jeff Grote, number 86. Soon thereafter, the early scoring marathon continued as Stabler hooked up with wide receiver Hobie Brenner, number 85. Trailing 14-7, it was now apparent, much to the Jets' dismay, that they would have their hands full with a well-balanced New Orleans offense. But what came as no surprise to New York, and Richard Todd in particular, was the ferocity of the Saints' pass rush, the NFL's #1 pass defense of 1983. Led by defensive end Reggie Lewis, number 98, and linebacker Ricky Jackson, number 57, the Saints harassed Todd all game, sacking him 3 times and limiting New York to only 54 passing yards in the first half. Another view of Jackson's sack of Todd shows the Pro Bowl linebacker blowing by overmatched fullback Marion Barber, number 31, en route to the quarterback. Surrounded by a fast-moving, high-pressure frontal system, it wasn't until late in the second quarter when Todd taxied the Jets from the tarmac to the runway. Forced to transform himself into a rollout quarterback, Todd connected with receivers like Derek Gaffney, number 81, and tight end Jerome Barkham, number 83. This 17-yard pass to number 85 wide receiver Wesley Walker keyed an 11-play drive that culminated on a 1-yard plunge by running back Marion Barber. Barber's only carry of the game enabled the Jets to keep pace with the upstart Saints 14-14 at the half. The Saints opened the second half much as they did the first. Stabler's 35-yard completion to wide receiver Lindsey Scott, number 80, contributed to the Jets' frustrations. Several plays later, running back Wayne Wilson compounded them. Voted the team's most valuable player in 1983, Wilson's touchdown capped a 12-play drive that set the tone for a third quarter that was all New Orleans. And if Wilson held back on his emphasis of that point, then running back Hokie Gaijan made sure it was pounded home on the Saints' very next offensive play. Gaijan's 58-yard dash highlighted his first 100-yard game as a pro, a run that had the Saints knocking on the Jets' front door. 2 plays later, George Rogers bolted through the side entrance. Rogers' second touchdown of the game gave New Orleans a 14-point lead entering the final period. Through the first 3 quarters of play, the Jets' defense had been run over, around, and through and successfully passed on, all to the tune of 401 yards, the Saints' biggest offensive output of 1983. But 3 quarters do not a football game make. In quarter number 4, the Jets transformed themselves into underground saboteurs and finally devised a way to derail this runaway Louisiana Express. First, they neutralized the engineer. Then they proceeded to destroy the wheels. Leahy field goal brought the Jets closer at 28-17. That set the stage for one of the most memorable comebacks in Monday night history. With approximately 5 minutes remaining, Todd looked for his favorite target, Wesley Walker. The game's top receiver with 7 receptions for 110 yards. Walker's timely reception keyed a late rally. 3 plays later, Todd located a wide-open target in number 80, Johnny Lamb Jones. Jones' 26-yard catch and run gave New York a first down at the Saints' 11. On the very next play, Todd looked to the end zone. Jerome Barkham's touchdown grab brought the Jets to within 4, 28-24. When the Jets' defense held on the Saints' ensuing possession, it gave them another chance to pull out a victory. But they wouldn't need the ball for long. Springs' electrifying 76-yard punt return climaxed a furious rally which saw the Jets score 14 points within 2 minutes to take a dramatic 31-28 lead. But Stabler and the Saints had a few more rounds of ammo left over from this shootout, and they used the final 2 minutes to drive into 3-point range. On a 3rd down and 6 with 19 seconds remaining, the call went to kicker Morton Anderson as he attempted a last-second game-tying 51-yard field goal. Patterson's attempt sailed wide left, sealing New York's comeback win and leaving New Orleans to suffer the stinging pain of defeat in a game they should have won. For the Jets, this was their most memorable moment in what was a very forgettable 7-9 season. But for New Orleans, this defeat was costly as their playoff hopes were dealt a major setback. They slipped a game behind in their division, never to recover before finishing 8-8. For yet another season, Bum Phillips' Saints not only fell short of the playoffs, but fell short of their first winning year as well.
Can you ever imagine a Pittsburgh Steelers fan rooting for the Raiders? Isn't that kind of like Reagan sending a Christmas card to the Ayatollah? Well, it happened back in 1974. Sending Dan Fouts into the Seattle Kingdom is a lot like sending Indiana Jones into the Temple of Doom. You know he's the best man for the job, but you're still never quite sure he's going to make it out alive. Such was the case back in 1981 when Fouts and the rest of Air Coryell touched down in the Emerald City to do battle in the cavernous dome with the ravenous fans. The way these Seahawks supporters were behaving, it seemed as if they didn't know that their team had a 3-7 record coming into the game against their AFC Western Division rival. Or hadn't they ever heard of Wes Chandler, Kellen Winslow, or Chuck Muncie? And weren't they aware that the Seahawks had never beaten the Chargers in their 8 previous tries? What they did know was that there was always something magical about a Monday night game. And Seahawk fans had an almost mystical impact on games in the Dome. And so a sellout crowd of Seattle magicians, armed with pom-poms, if not magic wands, cast their spell on the San Diego Chargers.
All ye who enter this dome, let fear be in your hearts. For the home of the Seattle Seahawks is a haunted house, inhabited by the army of the Blue Wave and many thousands of witches and warlocks, waiting their blue evil on the opposition below. San Diego quarterback Dan Fouts tried to ward off the vibrations before the game, but the spell had already taken hold of cornerback Willie Buchanan. When the clock told game time, however, the mighty Fouts quickly displayed the power he had in his magic right arm. Tight end Kellen Winslow showed no fear of the Blue Wave, and running back Chuck Muncie, number 46, steered right through it. Muncie led his team to the goal line, where he followed his blockers into the end zone for 6. The Chargers' message was clear. Whatever had made them 2-time defending AFC West champions had a force no less imposing than the Seahawks' dome field advantage. But Seattle's Jim Zorn was a Monday magician supreme, and he had his teammates believing that at night and at home, no mere mortals could top them. There was a momentary pause, and then Seattle swiftly struck. By air, it was Steve Largent. On the ground, Theodis Brown. Sean Brown had stolen San Diego's symbolic lightning bolt and electrified Seattle with it. For the next time the Chargers got the ball, it was the Seahawk defense that roared like thunder. Was inundating the Kingdom, and while San Diego drowned in the undertow, Seattle was riding its crest to euphoria. Once in field goal range, the Seahawks' fun really began. Magic is fun while it works in your favor, and a 17-7 lead was sitting well with head coach Jack Patera. But San Diego had a rabbit in its hat named Chuck Muncy. It took him just 73 yards to bring the curtain down on Seattle's Magic Act and to bring the Kingdome volume down to a stunned hush.
Why is this man being so...
Still in the second quarter, a very calm Jim Zorn reminded his teammates that San Diego had been utterly unable to stop the Seahawk offense, even once so far. Take it easy, fellas. This is still our show. And as far as Zorn was concerned, the show must go on. Zorn made his point with startling efficiency to number 81, John Country Sawyer, and the big tight end rumbled down near the end zone. And on this night, that was the Otis Brown country. Brown had only a month before come to Seattle from St. Louis, so he showed his appreciation to his new teammates on the offensive line. And with good reason. Watch number 64, Ron Essink, and number 65, Edwin Bailey, pull and open a mile-wide hole for Brown to cruise through. The recent acquisition put the Seahawks up 24-14 at the half as Seattle sent a resounding message to Fouts. This is a game we want to win, and not even you can stop us. Dan Fouts was not one to back down easily. Air Coryell roared downfield and set the stage for the game's pivotal confrontation. First and goal inside the 5. A touchdown would not only cut the Seahawks' lead to 3, it would give San Diego crucial momentum for the second half. But the Blue Wave had more than this single game on the line. With the season given up for dead at 3-7, here they could salvage something even greater, their pride. Muncy got as far as the 1, and it became second down and goal. 4 times before in 1981, Seattle's offense had staked its defense to a lead, only to see the Blue Wave squander it. But there had been injuries, and number 52, Joe Norman, was one of the wounded returning to help restore Seattle's tarnished image. Number 42, defensive captain Keith Simpson, shed Winslow's block and made the hit on Muncy, and he was ruled down at the 6-inch line. Third down came, and the Seahawks held again, bringing up the ultimate defensive situation. 4th and goal from inches away. Suddenly, it became a test of wills for Fouts and his vaunted Charger offense. Could the league's best playing for the playoffs be stymied by a defense playing for nothing but its name? Three times from inside the 1 had Seattle been tested, and 3 times they had risen to meet the challenge. It couldn't have been predicted. It certainly wasn't expected, but the Seahawks did it, and they didn't look back. To say the game turned on that miraculous goal line stand is not entirely accurate, for we must not forget the magic present, the kind of magic that could turn a part-time fullback into a game breaker.
Here's a quick pass, Zorn out in the flat, caught by Dornick out to the 50.
If the goal line stand had whipped the Dome into a frenzy, then Dornick's amazing catch and run brought the house down. It was the kind of play that has made Seattle a unique franchise, a place that a newcomer like the Otis Brown could get used to in a hurry. But the party was just beginning.
Brooks up for the 7-yard line. Big opening. The Brooks drive to lateral loses the ball. It looks like an attempted lateral as Seattle has the football.
Now, it's common knowledge that the Kingdome is supposed to be weatherproof, but disaster was clearly raining on San Diego. And when it rains, it pours. Linebacker Bob Horn, number 55, fell on Steve Largent's fumble and appeared to give the Chargers a ray of hope. But a roughing the passer penalty nullified the play, and that was just about the last straw for Glenn Edwards and the rest of the exasperated Chargers. Seattle, of course, quickly capitalized. Behind Brown's lead block on Edwards, Dornick carried it in for his second score of the game, increasing Seattle's lead to a seemingly insurmountable 38-17. Dornick, like his predecessor Brown, shared some of the end zone glory with his offensive linemen, and the thrill of the moment was shared by Seattleites all. Still, no wizard has yet found the formula to keep Fouts down for good. In a last-ditch fourth-quarter effort, Fouts unleashed his entire arsenal. Winslow is on the way to his second straight season as the NFL's leading receiver. He was the prime beneficiary of Fouts' quick drop-back and deadly release, which now we're making a superstar out of newly acquired Wes Chandler. It was pretty, but it was futile. San Diego had been run out of Seattle by a whopping 44-23 final score. The victory may have tasted especially sweet to Jackie Simpson, Seattle's second-year assistant coach, who had spent 7 seasons as the Chargers' defensive coordinator. Simpson's troops had lassoed San Diego's offensive stable of horses and salvaged a prideful moment from an otherwise forgettable season.